Welcome to Missionary Roundtable with your host, Kale Horvath.
Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Missionary Roundtable, the podcast all about the Great Commission and international missions. My name's Kale. I am a pastor and a missionary to the country of Hungary. So glad you guys could be joining us again today. We like to talk to missionaries and pastors who are engaged in doing Great Commission work, whether that's international missions or playing a part or a role in that. It's always good to hear people who are in the ministry and have experience doing it, talk about some of the behind the scenes stuff, strategy, practical ways to prepare, all that kind of stuff. If you've never listened to this podcast before, go back and check out the other seasons and episodes we have. We've had so many different types of conversations with different people, even just guys telling their story like last week. I love having a place just for people to tell their story about how God prepared them for what they're doing today and what God is doing with them today. Today we have a special episode. This is an interview with my wife, Brooke Horvath, and she's going to be talking about being a missionary mom and wife, but also just kind of really just our story, but from her perspective and her angle. I find myself answering questions from people about, how did your wife feel called to missions? How does your wife deal with this? And I can answer to the best of my knowledge, but it's always, obviously better to hear straight from her. And so in this episode, you'll hear her talk about a lot of those different things, and specifically in regards to being a mom and a wife on the mission field. So I hope you guys enjoy this episode. Take a listen. So Brooke, you're my wife.
Yes.
It's been 10 years.
It has been 10 years.
It's kind of crazy, isn't it?
Yeah.
How old were we when we started dating? It's actually good to have this conversation with you because my memory is so terrible. When people ask me when I'm like visiting churches and stuff, like, when did you meet? When like, well, it was high school roughly.
Yes. So those are the little details that my mind can remember. So we were actually, we were 17.
Really?
Almost 18.
Yeah. We weren't 18 yet, were we?
No, we went to homecoming in October.
That's
and we would have
nuts.
turned 18 in the beginning of the next year.
Yeah. So, I mean, we're getting close to being like half of our lives together.
It's crazy.
What do we got to get to 34, 35-ish. So, but we dated, senior year of high school and then got married. Well, we got engaged and then got married at 21. Mm-hmm. And people always ask me these questions for you because your personality isn't to be up in front of people and to talk.
No.
I kind of had to twist your arm to do this. But it's literally just you and me in a room with nobody else here, no camera. So
Makes it easier.
it'll be fine. But people always ask me, so like, how did your wife find Hungary? Like, did she feel called to mission? Because, people always want to know, like, is the wife called to missions or is she just submitting to her husband, which, like, that's a bad thing or something. But,
right.
But, like, okay, I always tell people, you probably remember the story better than I do. I just remember that I told you either when we were engaged or before we got engaged, definitely before we were married, that I wanted to be a pastor. Mm-hmm. And in ministry, and that was my dream and my goal. And I told you don't marry me if you don't want that, because I'm not going to be like a 9-to-5 guy. That's all I knew. I didn't know I was going to be a missionary back then, but we kind of, maybe your memory is clear how that went. But I just remember giving you the out at the beginning.
Yeah. I think it was before we even got engaged, like when we were starting to get more serious and head toward thinking about and talking about marriage. Yeah, you were really like straightforward with me, which I really appreciated. And we had the conversation and you told me basically like what you said, that, you're planning on having a life of ministry. And what that looks like, you weren't sure, but you knew you wanted to pursue being a pastor and like you said, not having a 9-to-5 job. And, it could lead to missions, you weren't sure what it would be. And so if that wasn't something that I was interested in or wanted to do with my life, then yeah, basically, don't marry me,
Yeah, and I hopefully didn't say it in a bold
No.
way like that, but it was I just remember wanting to tell you that like this is the goal with my life. If that's not what you want to do, then like let's start off on the same foot,
Right.
How can two walk together unless they be agreed? That was the idea.
Right. Yeah, I gave you the
Because
very
there are people that a girl marries a guy, he's a whatever, does whatever for a living, and God calls him in the ministry later in life.
right.
And they adjust eventually. I mean, obviously,
Yeah.
women are, they can adjust to anything that they put their mind to and submit to the Lord about. But it's harder for them because they're like, I didn't marry a pastor.
Right.
But for you, maybe talk about that in regards to ministry and then later missions. Like, because you knew from the beginning. Did that make it easier?
It did. It did. And I would say, like you said, no, it didn't come off that harsh. You didn't say it that harsh. You said it more, is that something that you would want to do with your life as well? Like, is that something you're interested in doing, having a life of ministry? But yeah, I mean, I grew up in church. And so I feel like just like you, we're very similar. Church was the main thing in my life. And so I was definitely interested in doing
And you got
ministry.
saved when you were a kid, too.
I
Like,
did.
I was 10.
Yeah, I think I was like 8.
Yeah.
And
yeah.
so, yeah, so
Similar upbringings as far as that's concerned. Like,
Right.
just going to church.
yeah, and always serving, in anything
More
and
than
everything.
just Sunday attenders. Yeah,
Yes, yes.
Being a part of ministry wasn't foreign to you.
No, not at all. Not at all. And oh yeah, we were always, anytime there was any kind of anything at church, any event or
Yeah.
opportunity to serve, I was always doing that even as a teenager. And so whenever you had told me that, it wasn't anything that would have been strange or that I didn't want, because that's just always what I wanted anyways. Not that I knew what that looked like, but I knew I always wanted to be very involved in ministry and in church no matter what it was. So it was a very nice, I really appreciated how honest you were about it, because had I not wanted that, it was a nice heads up, if you will.
Yeah. Well, and I feel like, I mean, I don't remember that well back then, but that wouldn't have been our first conversation about
No.
ministry. I mean,
No,
that
and
was all that we did. I
Right,
mean, when you
gosh.
first met me, it was a church youth group, and I was leading worship. So I mean, it was
right,
like, it wasn't an out of nowhere.
right,
Like we were dating for 2 or 3 years, and I was like, I'm gonna join the army. Are you cool with that? It
Right,
was,
right.
it wasn't out of the blue.
no,
But so if we fast forward, we get married, and then we go on our first missions trip to Hungary. That was our first missions trip as a couple, wasn't it? Like we didn't go
Yes.
anywhere else out of the country
no.
as a missions trip.
That would have been my first time out of the country.
No, because
Really?
we went on
Oh,
honeymoon,
I guess I'm
obviously.
thinking,
So, I mean,
like-
it's not a missions trip, but I mean we left the country together.
That was
one
our
other
first
time.
missions trip. Yeah.
Yeah, that was our first missions trip to Cancun. No. And so we got married in 2012, and then 2014 is when we went to Hungary the first time. And I distinctly remember my feelings about that trip, but what was going through your head on that first trip? Because there's a lot of funny memories about that trip, as far as like
Yeah.
even the friends we went with from the other church from Wildwood would remember. It's very lightheartedly dubbed the dog camp year because of
Right.
the facilities.
Right.
Dog but it was a very cool thing, and we saw, I don't even know, 60, 80 kids there,
Oh yeah, there was a bunch.
and just for me, that was one of the first times getting to see ministry done in a foreign context. There wasn't a church, it's not, we weren't
No.
partnering with a ministry. There was just an open
No.
door.
Yeah.
But what was that like for you? What was going through your head the first time, or even at the end of the trip, and you were looking back on it?
Oh man, I mean, going into it, I was obviously nervous just because I didn't know what to expect, but
I would have been young too, 23.
Yeah, somewhere along there. But I was excited from the very beginning. And I think with you being half Hungarian and me knowing that, it was kind of cool just to see, like, this is kind of part of where Kale's from.
Yeah.
Like, it was interesting to me,
yeah.
you know, it wasn't just someplace
Prior to
random.
that trip, I would have never thought that I would have had the chance to see where my family was from.
Right.
You know, so,
Right.
yeah.
So, yeah, it was awesome. It was exciting because for me, it was instantly, like, I don't even know, like, whenever the kids got there that first day, I mean, they were just so excited to see us. And I just remember,
and of course,
having,
I mean, there were kids that weren't.
right,
You know,
of
but
course.
the majority were
Of
just
course.
excited to, like, these Americans want to hang out with me only.
Right. Like, why are they
Play
here?
soccer,
Yeah. And so they were so interested. And I just remember I had a little group of like 3 or 4 kids, and they grabbed my hand and they were just running me around the whole entire camp and just pointing at something and saying the word in Hungarian and then looking at me and waiting for me to say it. And then as soon as I would, they would get so excited and just leading me all around. So that was like, you know, the first thing that happened. And I can't even explain to you. I was so excited, and it was,
Did you have any inklings that first year about, you know, being called there in the future? I don't know that I don't remember if I did, because before we moved here, I lost track. I came personally like 8 times or something.
yeah, you were here a lot more.
It wasn't quite 10, but 7, 8,
Right.
9, something like that. You had been here, what, 3 or 4 times?
Yeah, I think 4. I think
So
4.
like it wasn't like we went to mission school
No.
and then picked a place and then did a scout trip and then moved there. It was like
No, not at all.
we had been coming here
Right.
for years. I mean, 2014 was our first trip, and then we moved here at the end of 2020. So we had been coming for 6 years.
Right. Yeah, I wouldn't say I necessarily had a feeling that like, or like a thought that this could be the place or that we could do that. But I guess I was having more thoughts of like, I could do this. Like, this would be a really
I
cool
see.
place.
Just in general, like
Yeah.
I could do this.
Because I really just instantly felt, I don't even know how to explain
Because I would have
it.
surrendered my life to missions before that
Yeah.
trip. It was at the end of
Same.
2012.
Yeah,
It
so
was yeah, that's a cool.
yeah, so
story.
we had like an idea that we were planning on doing missions, and so when
Same
we,
missions conference, but not together. Like
Right.
separately and individually, God
Right.
touched our hearts about
Yeah.
surrendering to missions.
Yeah, for sure. And so,
So we were at least now thinking about
Yes.
missions
yeah.
in the future. Though, when you're 23 and you surrender your heart to missions, you don't know when that's going to happen.
No,
You
no.
know, even when you're 23, 25 sounds like it's an eternity away.
It does.
You know, like
Exactly.
a year or two sounds
Exactly.
like forever.
Right. And I just instantly loved the just everything. The culture, the language just sounded really cool to me.
Yeah.
And I just loved the place. I don't know, like stepping off the airplane and getting out of the airport and just seeing it. I was just like, I just remember being like, wow, like this just feels really.
And there's something about it being the first mission trip
Yeah.
too. Of course, I mean, it'd be naive not to say that, but like you've
Right.
been other places.
I
too.
have, and that's the thing.
And and those are cool places.
Absolutely.
I've been other places and they're cool places, but it's never been.
It's never
quite
been the
same
same. Right.
as when we arrive here and you get into the airport and you step outside the airport with your luggage and you like breathe in
Oh, yeah.
deeply and you're like,
Oh yeah, like
we're back.
yes, like
you know, like we did that for years before we ended up
We
moving
did.
here.
and so at least for me, I don't remember when you had ended up coming back the next time, but mine was from 2014, and then I didn't go again until 2017.
That's right.
And
I went in
so-
2016 because nobody went in 2015.
Right. And so it was like that feeling, like you said, like
It had been several years.
yeah, several years, and stepping off the airplane and out of the airport and just being like this almost
Yeah.
feels just like a home away from home almost. Like it is just different. And prior to that, I had been to another country too,
Yeah,
Nothing
so
against that, but
I know that story, so in that vein, maybe that story plays into this answer, but did you feel personally called to Hungary, or were you just quote unquote following your husband like a good little Baptist wife or whatever, you know? And the story you were referencing, I think maybe plays into that, but going to Albania by yourself.
Oh, okay. Yeah, so I did end up going to Albania in 2016 just to, obviously, I wanted to, it was a medical missions trip, so I worked at an eye doctor at the time, so it was a great opportunity, and it was a great trip.
And you went without me.
And I went without Kale. That was,
I went to
that was
Hungary
a
that
big
same
thing.
week, actually. Was it the same exact week?
Yeah, we were both in Europe. So you were
Yeah.
in Hungary and I was in Albania. And that was definitely
we
a
had
big
kids.
thing. Yeah, before we had kids. And so just being on another missions trip in a different country other than Hungary was big for me. Especially,
Sure.
Obviously there were other people from FBC that went with our group and some that didn't as well. So, I wasn't completely alone, but without you and just in another place, it was a good experience to almost, like you said, to make sure that it wasn't just the first place I went to is just the one that I wanted, or the only place I had went to was, you know what I'm trying to say?
Yeah. But even the place, though, just what about missions in general? Did that trip do anything for you that, like, was a confirmation about just being called to missions individually? Like, obviously,
The one
when
to
you
Albania?
get, I mean, theologically, when we get married, we're one flesh.
Right.
You know what I mean? So what the Lord calls us to do, we are going to do together.
Yeah.
But just you as an individual, did going to Albania without me and just, because, in ministry, I mean, pastors' wives, they're sometimes they're in the background and they're just doing whatever needs to be done. But this was you stepping out on your own.
Yeah.
Did that factor in at all, or was there any experience you had that was just confirmation?
Yeah, I guess it was definitely going without you. It was I'm stumbling on my words here.
It's fine.
It's just bringing up like emotions and stuff. But yeah, it was because I knew going in, like when I was there and just being able to, help these people. Now I worked in the eye clinic, but we were in this big gym, and the eye clinic was actually, half of it was the eye clinic in the gym, and the other half was the people from the church who were actually getting to share the gospel with the people after they were seen. No matter where they were seen, this is where they went next. And so it was really cool just to be able to witness the local people there, and sharing the gospel with the people that needed it. And so not only, the physical needs, but then the spiritual needs as well. And so just getting to be there and be a part of that, like, I just knew I definitely wanted to do something more along, like, with those regards, more something like reaching the people that that are just in a different place. That I don't know, there was just something about the being out of the US and really seeing the difference in the world. And I don't know.
I get
I
it.
would say, like, at the same time, obviously, like, for me, I want to do, and I trust that you are listening to what God is telling you and aren't going to lead us astray. So wherever you would say that you thought that we needed to go, that the Lord was telling you we needed to, I would be okay with that. But definitely just being able to go on that trip, but really mainly for me was going to Hungary, because that's just the
Several
one that
times,
touched my heart the most.
Sure. Well, I don't
Was
think
the
that's a
big one
coincidence
that
either.
really made the difference. Like, I want to do this for sure. Like, I definitely feel like this is something that the Lord wants me to do as well.
Yeah.
So.
No, that's awesome. So, we have a son,
Yeah.
Judah. He's 4 years old now. As a mom, that's going to be kind of the main theme of the this episode, and I know that you're gonna not feel like you can speak authoritatively as being a missionary mom because we haven't been on the field that long,
Right.
going on 2 years, and but still, so the language learning process, that's been our main goal the first 2 years of being on the field is language learning, and people always ask how that's going for me. Then they'll ask for you, but I can't really speak authoritatively to that. I always just tell people, well, this is where I'm at, and Judah's learning going to preschool, and Brooke's learning at a slower pace intentionally because she's a mother.
Right.
But how has that process been for you, as a mom, juggling because you have other responsibilities? Like for me, obviously I have to be a dad too, but at this stage with little kids, it's like you do a lot of the work. I mean, you really do. So it's like I have a couple of main goals, and language learning is one of them. I devote several hours a day to it at this point. But we intentionally discussed you going at a slower rate. And so you twice a week you have a lesson with a private teacher, and you've been doing that since we got here, essentially, a little after we arrived. And how has that process been for you, just in general?
It's honestly been really good. I really like only doing it 2 days a week. I don't think because of having Judah, I could do much more than that. So it is at a slow pace, and I'm aware I'm going to be in school for a lot longer than you.
Yeah.
But it's going really good. I really, really have a good teacher who is really good and aware at seeing how I learn and progress and like working around that. And she's totally understanding of, because my class is usually, as you know, when Judah is napping. And so, if he doesn't nap and he comes in and he won't stay out and I'm trying to have a lesson, if you're gone, I should say.
Yeah,
Normally
that's
you're
true.
watching him.
Right.
She's so good at, bringing up stuffed animals into the camera and helping distract him. But yeah, it's going great. I really am enjoying learning another language. It's definitely really hard, but it's really fun. I've always wanted to learn one, and so I think it's going good.
It's kind of cool. I always tell people too, it's kind of cool that we're learning it as a family, because even though Judah's little and he can't quite compartmentalize each individual language, he's aware that we're like,
Yeah.
we're on a team and we're learning this language together, and we help each other and we practice. Like, he's very much aware of that.
He is.
He helps you. He's sometimes a little
Oh my
butthole, and
gosh.
he will correct you or
Oh,
whatever.
yeah, he will.
and sometimes he's just wrong, and I'm like, no,
I
Judah,
know.
you're wrong, man. Your friends might say that, but that's just incorrect.
I know. I don't even remember what it was, but he did that to me the other day. Like I said, oh, I know. I said the letter C with K instead of T.
Oh yeah.
And so I said the word wrong.
You pronounced it.
I pronounced it wrong, an English way, and he corrected me. It's this, mommy, and said it like it was. I was like, oh, excuse me, but he does so good because he will help me. I'll ask him, Judah, what's that in Hungarian, and
If he
you hope
knows-
he's telling you the right thing,
Well,
but
yeah, that's true.
he'll usually say it or.
Well, if it's a word you know and forgot,
Yeah.
then you know. If you actually don't
Right.
know it and he
Man,
says,
I
oh,
don't
it's
know
this,
if I
like,
trust
I don't know if I trust you, dude.
Right.
Because you're a little fibber. But,
Right. He'll just make up something.
But yeah, so has it been frustrating that you're going slower than me and obviously Judah because he's learning at a child's rate, or has it not bothered you because I'm going ahead, I can help you, and we talk about
Yeah.
things in the lessons that you're going through now that I went through before.
Right. Honestly, I think that part has been super helpful for me. The fact that you are ahead of me, because, the teachers can explain it, but there's something about being on the learning side of it that you're
Right.
able to
And
explain
as
it in a different
English
way.
speaker learning this language.
Right,
yeah.
right. So that part of it has been really nice and super helpful. I would say the only thing it's not necessarily frustrating, but if, I can be a little discouraged sometimes just thinking of the fact that how long I'm
It's just gonna
probably
be a
going to
long
be in
time.
it before I can talk.
Especially considering the difficulty of this language in
Yeah,
particular.
yeah. Because I've noticed like I've been able to pick up more of what people are saying. But it's the speaking part that just seems to be so hard. And so I can, understand like what our neighbor is saying, but I can't always answer back to him. So that's kind of whenever it would get a little frustrating. But as far as like the school part and learning goes, I'd say I'm okay with the pace that I'm going, other than it's just going to be a while.
I've told you this before too. It's hard to explain, but considering when we first got here, I was doing intensive courses the first 4 or 5 months.
Yeah.
And so where you're at currently in your level, using the same textbooks that I used, you know more at this point in the textbooks than I did, because I was pushing forward so fast, and I didn't have anyone in my life that knew and could help me personally. And so even though it's taken you longer to get here, you still know more at this point in the textbooks and the courses than I did, because you've learned words going to the grocery store, talking to Judah. Yeah. Whatever. You're more comfortable with numbers than I was back then. You know what I mean? And so little things like that is I actually think I don't think that your language learning is going to be a straight linear trajectory. Like I think it's going to be a bit of a bell, and you know what I mean? It's going to start to accelerate. Because I've even seen that with me, is there's points where it accelerates and plateaus. But for you, I think once you start to accelerate, it's going to go faster, because you've got all this passive vocabulary and random knowledge that you've picked up but maybe can't put together. And then as you learn it in the books, you're like, oh, okay, got it. But when you're learning it like for the first time ever, and you're like, what? And you have zero context for like how in the heck that works, it's harder. So I think even though you're taking longer to do it, you're further, you just know more of the language than I did at that level. Right. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, just because like you said, you were in those intensive courses, and so you just learned so much all at once, really fast. Where
it was in the middle of the pandemic. Yeah. We were in lockdowns. Yeah. In this country until, almost the first 6 months that we were here. Right. Curfews. Oh, yeah. Nothing open except for gas stations, pharmacies. That was crazy. Grocery stores. So it's like you couldn't even, and it was winter. Yeah. Like, so what are you going to do? Go out to the park and find somebody to talk to? No, it was wintertime and people were staying inside. And so that was tough. But now, you go to the park, Judah makes a friend instantly. Like, that's a great thing. Every time and then you can try to talk to the parent, the kid. And so it's different. It is. It really is. So I'm glad you're not frustrated. There's definitely frustrating things. Yeah, like frustrating things. And just like, learning some grammar just sometimes gets frustrating. Hard. Yeah, especially when you don't understand. If you don't feel like you were ever particularly strong in grammar. Never have been. In English. Nope. Just because you're fluent in a language doesn't mean that you're advanced, I guess, is a weird, I don't know if that's the correct way to put it, but you know what I mean? It's like breaking things down. I've become better at English grammatically. Me too. Speaking since starting to learn this language. Me too. Because you have to learn what things like accusative case and definite and indefinite articles mean. You just you have to know so that you can make the comparison to English and be like, oh, okay. Absolutely. Direct object, gotcha. Yeah, and I literally told my language teacher, pretend I know no grammar at all, even in English, and explain anything like grammar-wise, a word or whatever, just so I can fully grasp and understand what you're saying, especially with you teaching me another language. Right. Cool. All right, let's move into more of the mom stuff here. Okay. When we moved, it was in the middle of a pandemic, of course. But let's, if that's even possible, forget about that part of it, and just but because that was so much of us getting here was in spite of the pandemic. But what was scary for you as a mom about moving to Hungary with a 2-year-old? Because Judah was 2.5 at that point. Yeah. Was there? I don't know what was going through your mind, because I had a million things going through my mind, and so and like so many of them were like logistics, and it's like I had to compartmentalize, and I couldn't think about that until we got here. Right. But just making that whole move, not the day of, but just the process leading up to it and getting here. I mean, he was our first child. We only had one when we moved here, so everything was when you have your first kid, every stage is a new stage, and because you have no experience with it, and so now we have a 2.5-year-old, and we're going to move across the world. What was going through your mind?
Gosh, a lot of things. Just because of, like you said, moving across the world, there was just so many emotions and stuff. And so I think, did you say the thing that, like, kind of scared me?
Well, I mean, did anything scare you? Or, I mean,
I think
were you uncertain? Or was there anything that
yeah.
you were just worried about?
Honestly, one of my biggest things was just coming here and not being able to speak the language, know the area, and knowing that I need to still be and still knowing that I'm the one that I need to. Obviously, you really helped a lot through this, so that calmed me. But figuring out where the grocery store is, how do we get food? I can't talk to these people. How do I pay for this stuff?
Yeah, that's nerve-wracking,
And
for sure.
having a 2-year-old, and he was such a social little thing.
Yeah.
And so that part was hard just because, you don't know anybody.
But mostly the pandemic, though.
That affected a lot of it. So it's
because
hard
it's like,
to...
if he could just go to the park and play with kids, he'll make friends.
Right. And
But
so...
actually, we've talked about this before. I feel like God gave us the right kid first
really did.
to enable us to do this, because he's so flexible and he's such a social butterfly.
He is.
That it's actually enabled us to be able to do this easier.
He has really made it, his personality has made it the easiest I think that it could be on a mom and a dad, obviously.
Yeah.
For sure. And so those were my big things, and not having a car and having to figure out the public. I was afraid of the public transportation. I did not go on it for months. You and Judah kind of
hunkered down for a few months.
And I'm a homebody.
And it was cold, man. We got here in December.
And that was part
of
it.
And so we had December, January, February. So the first 3 months, y'all kind of stayed in.
We did. We really did.
It was cold, and it was the pandemic, and we didn't know anything.
Yeah.
And we didn't have a car, and we didn't know how to use public transportation.
And it's not like...
And so I just went out, and I got the groceries, and we figured stuff out, and we found where stuff was. But that definitely took a toll, because by the time spring came and they started to open things up, y'all were ready to get out, and that's when you kind of finally started to venture out on your own.
Yeah.
And I started to get more busy, and I'm like, babe, I need you to take care of the groceries.
Which helps me, because I almost needed that little push. As silly as it sounds, I was just a chicken about going on the public my two things were like public transportation
new. We had never
and
done
the
that.
language. Yeah. I just have like this nervous feeling of going out and someone trying to speak to me or tell me something, and I have no idea what they're saying, and just, I don't know, that just made me nervous. Like trying to go to the store and pay, and them trying to tell me things and me not understanding.
You eventually get used to it, which is a weird thing to say. You just get used to not understanding everything.
Yeah.
At first, it's kind of a pride thing. You don't want to look dumb, and then you just get used to looking dumb.
Right. And it's totally
or you
fine.
reply something, you're super confident. You're like, oh, I know what you said, and I'm going to respond. And then they stare at you like, what did you just say? And you're like,
right.
Oh, I just said something stupid. Or I answered a question they did not ask. That I think I do that more often. I assume from the context they're asking something, and then it's like they didn't.
My default is just to say yes in Hungarian.
Yeah.
Yes. And sometimes they just are like, what?
I didn't ask you a yes or no question.
No. What are you saying? So I don't know if I answered it. Your original question, but
was there anything that you did intentionally, or maybe unintentionally, that you realized later that you were just as a mom trying to make the move easier for Judah? Because it's not just a move to another place; it's a move halfway across the world away from friends and family.
I would say, which this also helped in deputation, I tried to make any bedroom he was in the same. So I tried to, have his blankies, have his toys he sleeps with.
Often to my chagrin, because it was quite the package of things that we had to haul around. But you're right, though. You were very adamant about that even in deputation, because whether we were staying in hotels or spare bedrooms or people's basements or whatever, you were always trying to have some sort of constants.
Yes.
Because everything in life was a variable since he was, what,
right.
1 year old?
Yeah. And
1 year old.
oh yeah. So he's always been in some, always in different places that he doesn't recognize, not his bedroom. And as he was getting older and being more aware, I just wanted him to feel like we may not be in his room, but this is kind of like his room. So, that sound machine with the nightlight projector. And so I just tried
like
to
a projector
make it.
that shoots like little stars up on the ceiling or whatever.
Yeah. So for him, I tried to make.
Machine,
the sound machine that.
and music.
That was an accident. But yeah, his music, he likes to listen to your music when he sleeps. And so there were just like several things as far as that goes for him that if I made his room the same with that stuff, he seems to sleep fine as if he was at home.
Sure. How long after we moved here? He didn't sleep with us but a couple nights, because he's never, since we were little, he's never slept with us.
No.
That's always been very important to us. He's always slept in his own room since he was about, I don't even know, 6 or 8 weeks old.
And he's always done really good with it.
Yeah, but then, obviously that first night or two that we were here, everything was crazy. Everything was new. We're in a new empty apartment.
Right.
But it wasn't but a couple nights before we moved him into his room.
Right. Because I think
he did fine.
He did. Because I think being on deputation in different things and
it prepared him,
living in your parents' house, him just being in different rooms, it prepared him to so to him, he didn't know that we weren't just in a new place.
That's fair.
And
that's
so
fair.
I think, the first couple nights, obviously it was emotional for all of us. But then, he was only in there a few nights, and then once he was in his room, he was fine. And I tried to make it exciting for him and stuff. And I brought, wall decorations from his bedroom and tried to make it look as much like his room as it could. So.
No, that's good. And so I guess, like, if we're just thinking about people, future missionaries on deputation, missionaries getting ready to head to the field, like, if we're just taking that into advice, that is something that seemed to work really well.
Yes.
Is just, for your kids, everything is always changing. And kids are flexible. They really are.
Yeah.
You get worried because you see how distraught emotionally they are one day, but then, like, 3 days later, they're fine. But, like, if you can just give them as many constants as you can fashion,
as you can bring along with you.
Something as simple as a room, making it feel comfy.
Yeah.
That was, I mean,
I think that was just huge for him.
Something you did that you made sure to do that really helped.
Thank you.
So we were here, we moved in December of 2020. Nothing really opened up until June of the following year. And so we started venturing out, found a small church to go to on Sundays, because we obviously weren't really starting much. We didn't have much ministry to do at that point. And that summer, just starting to venture out and really make home, make this country our home. But it wasn't until, I think, it really didn't start to feel like home until Judah started school.
I agree.
Which would have been the fall of last year. So he just, recently, back in June, completed his first full school year. Do you want to explain just that process of, like, I always try to explain to people, because we say that, okay, so he's going to something that's called Ovoda, and that means kindergarten, literally.
Yeah.
But it's not the same as America. So can you just explain to people what school has he been going to? I tell people it's kind of like preschool, but what did he do this past year for school, and why was that super helpful to not just him but to us and to you?
It was very helpful for me. So he, when we signed him up, he started going. I would drop him off at the school at 8:30 and pick him up at 12:30. So as far as it helping me, it freed up my mornings. It gave us a routine.
That was big.
That was huge. We needed a routine. And so that helped us a lot. And with the pandemic, we were just always right with each other. So I think it was.
It got you two some separation. You two were kind of at each other's necks.
We were
6-8 months of being
right.
cooped up together.
Oh yeah, so that was really good for both of us. But that opened up my mornings to, because having a little kid, it's hard to get things done, and they constantly just want your attention, which is fine.
Chores and errands. And
so I could do all that stuff in the morning and do my homework and stuff like that. So that was the biggest thing for me. So for him, I would take him in the mornings, and it was so good for him. He, within a couple weeks, there's 20 kids in his class. He had all their names memorized.
Yeah.
He knew exactly things about him.
He was so excited to have friends again.
It was so huge for him.
It did not matter to him that he couldn't speak to him.
He didn't care.
Did not matter.
And he has such a personality that he is like a go-getter, and he doesn't care at all that he couldn't speak to him. He's just going to go join in and have fun and make friends, and somehow end up being like the little leader of the group. And so it was very big for him. So he was obviously...
Let's really quick. So explain.
Yeah.
So Ovoda is kindergarten, but they can go when they're 3 years old.
Yes.
They don't have to go full day. So Judah went in the mornings, and you picked him up after lunch. And brought him home to take a nap here.
Yeah.
But next year, we're going to let him go all day because he wants to. Not because we need
he's been
him to.
asking
because a lot of
me.
people use it for childcare.
Yes.
So if the mom works.
Yes.
But he just wants to. So he'll take a nap there, and then you'll pick him up at like 3 or 4 in the afternoon or something.
Right. So it's cool because the way that ours is, and I guess not all of them are like this, but ours is, they actually have, so the moms can use it almost as like a daycare as well.
Because it's public school. We're not sending him to private school.
No, it is the private.
And that was important.
Yeah, it's the public school.
This is the public preschool, if you will, kindergarten in our neighborhood.
Yeah.
So other moms and kids who live in our neighborhood.
Which is really cool.
And so you guys ride the public transportation every day.
Yep.
You walk there. And you go to school just like every other Hungarian. That was like part of the cultural adaptation. Is become one of the people who live here. Not, okay, we're going to go to the expensive private school where they're, learning instruments and music theory and 12 languages.
Right.
They don't even speak English there. It was a bear for me to get them signed up.
Oh, because there was one teacher
I spoke almost no Hungarian
that
back then.
Some English. She's not there
gone.
now.
Yeah,
she's gone.
Halfway through the school year.
So, that's been interesting. But yeah, it's cool because...
But it's been all Hungarian.
Yeah.
And he will go there until he... is 6. So from the ages of 3 to 6, they can be an Ovoda. I think 2 years is the minimum they have to go. They don't have to start when they're 3, but they have to go 2 years. And then once they turn 7, it's 6 or 7. It depends on when their birthday is.
Yeah, right.
That's when they actually go to like primary school, like elementary school.
Right. Right. But it's, no problem. It's cool because so they can, be there as young as 3 and, maybe even a little younger, but the ones in our neighborhood mix the age groups. So there were some, 4 and 5 year olds too. And it's cool because of the older kids being there, they're helping teach the younger ones as well as the teachers.
That was really cool. I liked that. Having the mixed play. Because they do play most of the morning.
Right, they do. They take them outside.
And they learn things.
They do crafts.
But it's like a lot of time just playing outside together.
It is, which is great. And especially because Judah hadn't had a lot of that interaction. It was starting to get warm before Ovoda, and I tried to take him to the park when I could. But yeah, so he had the older kids teaching him. He had kids his age. And obviously he was learning being in church, how to play with other kids.
Well, we didn't have that anymore.
We didn't, so that was gone.
We didn't have that structure.
Right.
So this was important for structure.
Very.
In our family life. He started, he had a hard time napping, which was weird for him. He always he was very structured for his naps back in the day. But when we got here, his naps, he wasn't taking naps every day. And they weren't taking them well. They were very spotty. And we didn't really know why. But then it made sense later once we went to school and every day the nap was consistent again. He just wasn't tired. He didn't get worn out in the morning.
Right, I wasn't wearing him out because...
in the winter and you stayed inside and so now he comes home every day and he's worn out, tuckered out,
ready
takes
for
his
a nap.
And that was just so huge for routine for you guys and structure And then obviously the language, because he has spent one full school year, and I wouldn't say that he speaks it at the level of other 4-year-olds yet. Like he's not fluent fluency is such a weird word, but like
For that age.
yeah, for that age, he's not where the other Hungarian kids are at
Right.
yet, but he is getting very close.
Right.
Like he does. We see when he is with a group of Hungarian kids, it takes a minute. When he goes to school, it doesn't. But there's a little switch in his head that will flip eventually. When he goes to school, it's very context, situation oriented. I've noticed because we'll practice at home, but we mix it. We call it Hunglish. We mix the Hungarian and the
Hunglish.
English to help each other learn, and he'll do that. But the switch doesn't flip.
No, it doesn't. And
But when he's
especially
playing, it does.
Oh, so much. The second we go to any kind of park, gosh, when we were at the mall the other day with that little girl.
Yeah, she was from the Ukraine,
Yeah,
so
he
he
was
was
trying to
confused why
speak.
she didn't speak English or Hungarian.
Right.
Yeah.
And so he will instantly just change and start talking to them and as best he can in Hungarian.
yeah.
And so I think it's been huge, obviously, for him just learning the language, little things like him coming home and I didn't teach him how to use scissors and he's using
Yeah,
scissors.
yeah.
They do hygiene things there. So they're teaching him to, how to brush their teeth and he's showing me how he does this. Obviously I would try to brush his
Well, that's
teeth.
kind of cool too, because like I didn't go to preschool in America. I don't know if you did,
No, I didn't.
but like that's not something we would have necessarily made him do if we lived in America,
I don't think-
because
yeah.
our church is so good, and we have enough, and you wouldn't be working full time, that it's like it
Right.
wasn't necessary.
Right.
But here, for a lot of reasons, it was necessary.
Yeah.
And it's just I do feel like it's a little different. It's a little more old school. It's a little more traditional.
Yeah.
It is very much like a family of 20 kids who come.
It really
and
is.
he'll have the same teacher for the 3 years
Which
that
is
he's in
so
Ovoda.
I love
so
that.
they really do become like other moms. And
Oh,
they,
yeah.
they love the kids and they're teaching. And I was so worried about, we both were. We were just worried that he would get a teacher who would be annoyed
Yes.
that he didn't speak
Yes.
the language, and that would bother them, or that they wouldn't try to reach out.
Right.
But
Kind of
God
maybe-
really blessed us with an amazing couple of teachers that love
They're
him.
fantastic.
And he's just been like their little project.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
We're like, do you want to tell the story about the first day on orientation?
Yes, yeah. So the first day we went there, so they had the parents come, and excuse me, and so it was cool. I got to kind of just be a part of it. But when we got started, they called all the kids into the circle, and went around and had all the kids say their name and stuff. And then whenever, correct me if I get it wrong.
I wasn't there. This is your story.
I know, I've told you
You've
before though,
told
so
me,
I
yeah.
mean, after I tell it a while, I start to forget details. But basically, when they got to Judah, he's in English, my name's Judah. But it was cool because their teacher then told all the kids, Judah is from America and he doesn't speak Hungarian. And so we all need to help him learn Hungarian. Basically, can we all help him learn? And all the kids in Hungarian said yes or igen. And so it was cool because from the very beginning, instead of, them not knowing why isn't this kid talking to us and maybe kind of, pushing him aside, the teacher was so good and very purposefully telling the kids, this is why he can't
Yeah.
speak and making him a part. And like, so all the kids help him. I've seen it
been
and it's
amazing.
it's so great.
I can't recommend that enough. Now listen, when he gets older, like, will he always go to a strictly public school? I don't know. We'll cross that bridge when we get there, because we're also going to have to make sure that he can read and write English
Right.
at a good level as well. So,
Right.
we need to make sure that there's a lot more options for schooling in a city like Budapest than there is in
Yeah.
New Philadelphia. It's not like you go to the high school.
Right.
It's like there's every level that you reach, elementary school, middle school, high school,
Mm-hmm.
they're not exactly the same, but every level that you complete, you then have like 100 options based on your grades and your goals for the
Yeah.
next level.
Yeah.
So we'll see. But for now at this level, I'm so happy that we went with the local public
Me too.
school,
It's
because
been
he's also
wonderful.
learning the culture. So he learns
Yes.
and he sings their little Hungarian Christmas songs. He learns their
I
little
love it.
Christmas traditions. Their what do they do on Easter and all of those things that we don't know. We're learning too.
Right.
We actually learn half the time from him.
Right.
And by stuff that they send home from the school,
Which has been really fun
and then
for
we
me.
talk to our friends, and they're like, "Oh yeah, we sing those
Yeah.
songs," because they don't, if you just ask your friend, "Hey, what do you do when you were a kid for Easter or Christmas?"
I don't know.
Yeah, because it's just what they've always done. It'd be like if you
Yeah.
asked an American what was every single tradition you had.
Right.
Like, I don't know, man. It was just life. But
Right.
then you tell them, "Hey, Judah did this. What's that all about?" They're like, "Oh yeah, that thing."
And then they'll
they
explain it to you.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that's been a lot of fun for me just because I'm also getting to, well, obviously you too, learn some of the culture things through him because
sure.
he's doing it. And so, yeah, that's been fun.
Yeah, so that's been really cool. Let's get a little more serious now as we start to wind down. How it's okay. There's no wrong answer to this question. Do you feel like you've evolved emotionally or otherwise, as a mom, as a wife, over the last 2 years since we first arrived, or do you feel like you've changed? Because obviously we've changed, we've grown.
Absolutely.
Are completely different situation. What's different? What's the same? I don't know. That's kind of a deep question, but since we arrived here, obviously you're more comfortable. It doesn't, like we talked about earlier, it doesn't bother you that you don't know everything. It did at first. But like as a mom, Judah was 2 years old when we came here. He's 4 now.
Yeah.
By the time we visit America again, which will be soon, I'll tease that. We're going to talk about that before we end the episode. He'll have lived almost half his life in Hungary.
Right.
At this current time, he's more of a Hungarian than he is an American.
Which is so crazy.
Which is, yeah, it's absolutely bonkers. So have you changed over time just as a mom or emotionally just as a person? Do you feel like you're different today than you were in 2020?
I would think so. It sounds silly, but I'm kind of a hard question to specifically answer because I don't know if I have a specific.
Well, I know I didn't brief you with questions before. I'm just thinking like
I would say
so
like for
if,
me.
No, go ahead.
Like as far as, I kind of feel like maybe I don't worry about things as much. I
Were you more guarded at first just because
Yeah.
everything was new?
yeah.
So like that mama instinct is like you have to protect constantly.
Yes. Yes.
And we're in a big city. We came. I
Right.
always tell people we didn't just move to a new country. We moved from a small city to a capital city.
Yeah.
We moved from the Midwest to Central Europe. We moved from America to Hungary. And like there's so many variables that it was like kind of overwhelming at the beginning.
Yes. And so in the beginning, I just kind of felt like I had to do this. I have to do this. I have to make sure this. And, just because everything, like you said, everything is completely new. And so I feel like now I'm just more, sounds silly because obviously I was reliant on the Lord to
Yeah, but you're not
get
as
us here.
on high alert.
Yeah, I think
as
I was just on
before.
high alert on everything.
Like
and-
something as simple, at least for me, is like even just walking down the street. Like I wouldn't even let him walk without like always having his hand on the sidewalk.
Same.
But now it's like he's used to cars and bikes and motorcycles whizzing
Yes.
by. And so I still watch him, of course. I mean,
Right.
but I'm not as on high alert as I was. Or
Yeah.
like getting, like, okay, this is a dumb example, but I just thought of it. Whenever we're at the tram stops, we ride the tram all the time, which is literally a tram that is on tracks that is in the middle, in the median of the main road that we're near. And that used to freak me out, like standing at the tram stop because like that thing whizzes by you.
Oh yeah.
And I'm like someone's going to get hit by this thing.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody does.
No.
Like, you get so used to it coming, and you see it from so far away. And so, like, I used to be so worried to make Judah stand way back.
Mm-hmm.
And, but now it just doesn't. I still hold his hand when it's coming. But it
Right.
just doesn't freak me out as much as it did at first.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. So I
I'm
think.
not saying I let him play on the train
Well,
tracks.
no, of course not.
Like-
I would hope not. No. Yeah, just I think all those things. So just everyday life, I think just because it feels like home now here.
Yeah.
And so when we first got here, everything being new, everything was just, like you said, on high alert, just because you don't know anything, you can't understand anything. But now that's all just, it's kind of just like normal. So I think I'm just
Yeah.
more relaxed and calm, as if I would be at our home in America.
Yeah.
And just, new things don't freak me out.
Well, even what about like, so, we lived in a house in a small town. Now we live on the 4th floor of an apartment building.
Yeah,
We have a large balcony, which is awesome
I love that thing.
because we get to go outside and because we don't have a yard.
Right.
And so we utilize that all the time. But at first you were so freaked out.
Oh, yeah, I
about-
didn't
we're on
like
the
that
4th
thing
floor,
at
it's high up,
first.
about Judah going out there. But you both have calmed down to where
Yeah.
like you have plants out there that you guys water and take
Yes.
care
Oh,
of.
he
He's got a
loves
small
that.
little
Love it.
kiddie pool that he splashes
Yeah.
around in.
I think I was just very overprotective when we first got here about like
everything was
anything
new.
we did.
Everything was
Right.
new.
Everything was new. Like you said, getting on the tram was freaked me out. Going to the store, going out onto the balcony. It sounds silly, but I'm afraid of heights. And so just being near the edge was like freaked me out. And I didn't want Judah even to go out on the balcony because I'm like, he's just going to, there's a gap and he's going to slip right down through and I'm not looking for a second. He's going to like, oh yeah, I think I was just very nervous and anxious about a lot of things that I didn't even maybe at the time realize I was. And now I just feel like I'm just a lot more calm about things. And I don't know if I answered your
No,
question.
yeah, absolutely. Is there anything that that God showed you early on? Because I could go on and on about things because we were so reliant on the Lord that first year, especially the first 6 months. Spent a lot of time with the Lord, and He showed me a lot in prayer and in the Word that taught me a lot about myself and Him, but also got me through that time. But like, is there anything that God showed you specifically, or taught you about yourself or about Him that that was specific to that first period of time that we got here?
I would say, gosh, I gotta just really think back.
It feels like so long ago.
It
now,
really
doesn't it? It's kind of
does.
crazy.
It does. Honestly, and when we got here, I was just going through a lot. We had, well, obviously, just the whole move of everything and moving away from friends and family, but, I was also dealing with my grandpa passing away,
Like,
right,
literally
but
the week before we left,
the Sunday before we left, his funeral. And so I had all of that and like leaving my family behind during all of that hard situation. And I just had a lot of emotions I was dealing with. And I just think, nothing exactly specific, but he really just helped me through all of that. Just being able to, I really just him, I just feel like, I don't know, gosh, my emotions are starting to, I'm doing a bad job. I think he just really proved to me that he was in control of everything, no matter the circumstance, because just of, everything being so uncertain and everything being new. And, I'm the daughter that could live across the street from my family my whole life, and I would be
would've
okay
been
with
fine,
that.
yeah.
And so stepping out in faith and knowing that, that's not the life that we're going to have, and that's not what the Lord has for us, but still just knowing that he, because of other things that have happened, that he is always there to take care of us. And so I think I just feel like it was just, I just had the need to lean on him through all the difficulties. Yeah, we had to lean on him.
And
so
without doing that, there's very few times living in America that you have to, unless something tragic happens.
Right. And especially, you're also away from your church family.
That makes it hard.
Just not having that regularness in your life. I feel like I just had to really heavily rely on the Lord
in my personal relationship with him.
My personal relationship with him.
Not just the fellowship of the church, which is important.
Right,
not
absolutely.
Not just fellowship with your family, which is important.
Right.
But your personal one-on-one relationship with God.
Yeah, I feel like I just really had to make sure I was in the Word and in prayer and spending time and not just shutting myself down because of how hard it was. Like I'm the type of person that would just pretend like everything's fine and everything's okay and just and just
Same.
Go through the motions and could just not lean on the Lord, I guess, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so I just really tried to not do that this time and make sure I really leaned on him and really focused on our.
And he did. He came through every single time, from residence permits to
he proved himself.
Getting a bank account. I mean, it was just so many crazy things. Because even when we came here, we weren't sure that we were going to be able to get in during COVID, and we didn't know what we were doing. And I was making phone calls when we first arrived because we got here right around the holidays, so I couldn't really get a hold of anyone in the government office until after Christmas and New Year's.
Right.
And then they're like, "Oh yeah, man, we've got your visa thingies down here. Like, you need to come get these now." And I'm like, "What?" Like, it was but he just always provided a way or provided someone to help us. So there's been people that have come and went in our lives here that we haven't talked to since we first got here. But I can think of 2, 3, or 4 right off the top of my head, people that God gave us right in those first couple of months that helped us accomplish things that we just wouldn't have been able to at first. And I haven't seen them in over a year.
No.
But God provided, and that was huge. Because you set up those stones, like in Joshua, you set up those stones from the middle of the Jordan River, and when it's hard again in the future, you look back on those things. You're like, yeah, God took care of that.
Yeah.
And he will again.
Right. And I guess I just feel like the biggest thing that is just basically like he's got this. He's got us. No matter what circumstance we've been in and through, everything that we've, deputation and the whole process of getting to where we are now, that the Lord, he's got this. Like, just, it's the silly cliche, let go and let God. Like, like, you can't control anything. I'm here quit trying. Yeah. Just let me take care of it, and I will take care of you. And I feel like he just always has proven that 100 times over for us, for everything we've been through.
Especially even since deputation. Like, really ever since 2019.
Yeah.
When we first started. Now, with that being said, we are going to move on to the next stage of our life here, and we're adding another baby boy.
We are.
He's due in November. So,
we are going to have...
We're kicking around a few names. No names yet.
Yep, but, baby boy number 2.
So, that means that we will be heading back to America for our first visit since moving to Hungary.
We will.
Just booked tickets the other day.
Yes, it's official.
We'll be coming back in mid-September to have the baby in November.
Yep.
And then, obviously, since we're there, we're going to stay through the holidays, and it'll be the first time being with our family for the holidays since 2019, technically.
Yeah.
So that'll be cool. So we'll be back in America in mid-September, Lord willing. Have the baby in November, and then stay through the holidays, and then come back to Hungary in January.
Yeah.
And that'll be awesome, because next year, well, I'll save that for another time. But I'm very excited for what I think the Lord is.
Yes.
Just the vision for the ministry and stuff next year, starting in 2023. So, but all that being said, now we're gonna have the baby in America, but do all the paperwork we got to do, and then bring him back here. And now it'll be a family of 4. And
That'll be so crazy.
I don't know, what are your thoughts just about, we've already done this. We've already had a 2-year-old in Hungary and on a plane, but we've never had an infant on a plane and in Hungary. And you know what I mean? It's like most of this we've already done, but there's still,
Right.
I feel like being a missionary, there's always going to be something new. It's like, man, we haven't done that yet. I don't know how to do that.
Oh, I know.
I don't know how to have 2 kids on the field. I don't know how to take an infant. I mean, we'll figure it out because we always have, and God has always been
Yes.
there. But I don't know. I'm kind of excited. Judah's super excited, of course, to be a
he
big
is.
brother.
Very excited.
But I mean, I feel like this one will grow up even more like a Hungarian than Judah did from birth.
Yeah.
Learning the language from birth rather than
Right.
from since he started school at 3.
Right, because he'll just, I mean, obviously, and we'll be speaking more Hungarian as well, so, he'll hear it that way. But yeah, and just getting into, he'll just already be immersed in it from the beginning.
For sure. So yeah, I mean, we're excited about that. We're
Very
excited to see you guys in the fall. I mean, we won't be doing a ton of traveling, obviously, because the main reason we're coming back is Brooke will be 9 months
Very
pregnant, having a baby, and then it'll be around the holidays. But we're gonna strategically try to be at a few conferences, LFF conferences, so that we can see a lot of people, and I'm sure I'll make a few trips out too. But excited to see people again. It's been a long time.
Very excited.
It's good, babe. We should probably wrap up here.
Okay.
Any last, I don't know, things you want to say? Like, obviously, we haven't figured everything out.
No.
We haven't even started our church yet. We haven't fluently learned the language yet, but we've been learning, and God's been teaching us a lot. We've only got 1 kid, but we're gonna have 2.
Mm-hmm.
Is there anything, just as a missionary wife and mom, that you've learned along the way that you would give as advice for a future missionary wife or mom, or even just pastor's wife or mom? Anything like in this context, what we've been talking about.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I know I'm putting you on the spot. I
it's
didn't give you
okay.
any of these questions
And I'm
beforehand.
sorry, because my
no,
mind goes blank sometimes.
I didn't want it to be really an interview. I just wanted us to chat. You know? So is there anything you can think of off the top of your head that you would tell?
Yeah.
Future missionary wives or pastor wives.
Yeah.
And moms.
Yeah. So this might just sound silly, and I'll have other things as well. But my big thing, it's just a silly little saying that has always just helped me through any deputation, hard situation, or just any circumstance, because everything is just so different. My little saying, as you know, is it's not forever, it's just for now. Mm-hmm. And for me, like, so when you're in a hard situation, you're in a stranger's house, you have your,
living out of suitcases.
Living out of suitcases for who knows how long, and you got your kid who doesn't have any stability, and you're visiting all these different new churches and a bunch of new people constantly. Just, it's not forever, just for now. And just telling myself, like, I can do this because this isn't life always. Mm-hmm. Obviously there's good parts to it, but then there's hard parts to it. And so with those hard parts, just reminding yourself that, this isn't how life is always going to be. The Lord's got
it's a
you.
Stage.
Yeah, it's just a stage. And, just trust the Lord. He knows, when you struggle and when you don't, and just, rely on him, and trust your husband. He, he's going through a hard time too. And so just making sure that you're there for him as well in any way that he needs. 'Cause he's going to do the same for you,
Would you say, for the wife, it's obviously it's important to communicate how you're doing to the husband. 'Cause obviously, like, if you're a supportive wife and your husband is having a rough time or is just really busy, you're going to try to support him. But, like, you also don't want to just push down your own feelings. Like,
right.
you gotta balance
to
that
have
somehow, because
yes,
then you're gonna just blow up at some point because
absolutely,
you're suppressing everything.
and right, and he's
good
not
or
gonna know
bad.
what's going on. Right. So yeah, definitely, just making sure you keep that communication open.
Like if you need to have an hour long distance phone call with your mom,
then
just say it.
Yeah.
Like, hey, can tonight after the kids go to bed, do you mind if I talk? Like, obviously
Yeah.
that's never gonna be a big deal, but it's like, just like,
don't be
talk.
afraid to say or ask about, excuse me, sorry, things like that. Make sure you are being honest with your husband and not just feeling like you have to be the supportive rock behind him, who is just always fine. Like, it's okay to not be okay, and
no,
to
for real.
communicate that with your husband, because he's not gonna know. Us as women, we want him to just realize how we're feeling and figure it out, but he's not gonna always know.
Right.
So making
And as
sure,
long as you both are on the same page that we're all in
Yeah.
this together, we're not going home.
Right.
We're not quitting.
No.
Well, then of course it's okay to not be okay, because we all know what you just said. It's not forever. It's just for now.
Yeah.
And,
we can
whatever
do this
this
together.
hard thing is that we're going through,
We're all in it together,
all in it
and we'll all
together.
get through it. You're not alone, because you're all in it together.
Yeah.
And so
Anything for mom specifically?
I guess just making sure, because I guess the way I wanted to, because when you're doing deputation, it's the husband who is the one getting up in front of the church and speaking and talking and doing all this stuff. And so for me, my role and the way I felt like I was helping and doing my part was making sure that Judah was taken care of.
Yeah.
So making sure that I can take any maybe stress off of you that I could by making sure that I was doing everything I could with Judah so that you could focus on the part that you needed to. So I guess,
And as a team, like, that's a really important role.
Yeah.
Even now, like, I don't know, what do you feel your role is as a missionary mom? Like, we don't have a church yet. That it's starting. The
Right.
foundation is being laid. Praise
Yeah.
God, it's awesome to watch as it's happening in real time.
It really is so cool.
But we don't have that structure. We're used to having a structure with children's ministry that's laid out from birth until graduation at 18. But we're building that here, and it's going to take a while. But right now we don't have it. And so, like, you don't have that structure. So, like, as a missionary mom or wife, like, what do you feel like your role is at this stage?
At this stage, sorry. I really just feel like my role is to, I'm sorry, kind of like it would be almost at home. Keeping the house and making sure, that Judah's good and taken care of in any way, that the house is, if you want to say clean and taken care of as well. Teaching Judah, really just being like holding down the fort at home. Does that make sense? Does that sound silly?
Well, no. In the first 6 months we were here, we didn't have a church to go to.
No.
We couldn't. They were closed. So we watched FBC on Sundays for something.
Yeah.
But you also took Judah through Bible lessons. Like, you were teaching him
Yeah.
the Bible and doing
right.
You still do memory verses.
And that's what
with
I
him.
try to do. And it was so sweet. FBC sent me the little
shout
memory
out to our home
verses.
church for that,
yes.
Sending us children's curriculum. For
I've
you
got
to take
almost
him
like
through.
almost a year of it, and the little memory verse things for the fridge. And so, not having the church in the beginning on Sundays, I tried to read him either the lessons from FBC that they gave us, or little things from the Bible, and get little print out crafts and stuff, and do memory verses and things, almost like you would as if he was in children's church in his little class on Sundays and stuff. And so just trying to do that and teach Judah, and when he wasn't in school, still trying to teach him little things like his alphabet and the sounds, and but then also making sure I'm keeping the home
Sure.
in a way that would be helpful to you,
yeah,
if
of
that makes
course.
sense. Like,
No, yeah, I think that's good though. Is like you don't feel. I guess what I'm getting at is, like, you don't feel like you're not a part of
No.
the team and the ministry. Like maybe some
Right.
ladies would be like, well, I just feel like I'm over here trying to figure out what I'm supposed to be doing. And it's like,
No.
no, I mean, there's pretty clear cut defined roles that we all need to be
Yeah.
doing in order for this to be successful. you
Absolutely.
know?
No, like I feel like right. This is my part, and especially in this beginning stage, whenever, like you said, we don't have a lot going on. We have some things here and there, but so I feel like my role is to just continue to hold down the fort at home and make sure everything is running keeping its
That
the
really has
stability at
the theme
home.
of what you've been talking about, and now I can see since we started Deputation 2019 has been you've been just trying to keep everything stable.
Yeah.
Especially for Judah, but for the family too.
Right.
Yeah, keeper of the home.
Yes. Yes.
For sure, and you've done a fantastic job at that.
Thank you.
And you know, it'll be new. When we visit America for an extended stay, 'cause
It
we'll
will.
be visitors. We'll be legitimate visitors.
It'll be very strange.
It'll be cool.
It'll be
but
fun.
different. And then bringing back a new baby. It'll be a new stage, but
Mm-hmm.
it'll be cool. And we're trusting the Lord. Well, anyway, babe, thanks for doing it. I appreciate it.
Yeah, you're
This was fun.
welcome. You're welcome.
And thank you guys for listening every week and coming back. If you haven't listened to previous episodes or seasons, there's 2 full seasons before this. This is season 3 of this podcast. And for those of you who listen every week and have heard all the episodes, thank you guys for tuning in. This one was a little bit more of just like an interview and a personal update just in life and ministry. And so I hope that you guys found that interesting. But thank you guys once again for checking it out. We'll see you back here, same time, same place next week on the next episode of Missionary Roundtable. Till then, God bless.
Thanks for listening. Please rate and subscribe and share us on social media. Also, please make sure to check out our other podcast, Theology Roundtable, at theologyroundtable.com.